Good afternoon. You're listening to Love Bay Afrobeat Music Radio Talk Show. And this afternoon, I am your host, and we are talking today about effective strategies for conflict. And we're looking at conflict in marriage, and we have many problems in our marriages. But when we can find a solution that will help us to resolve our conflict, it will be so much better. So today that will be our topic. We are looking at the conflict, and when we think about conflict, it's simply a disagreement between two or more persons. We have, for example, I always talk about this one. I cut my onion on the side or down the middle. My husband cut on one angle. And because of that, that's a conflict. But to resolve that, I will cut my own onion, and when he go to cook, cut his own onion. That resolved that conflict. But there are some conflict in marriages that are not so easily resolved because when you're looking at two separate persons, and especially if one feels that I'm right and the other thinks that he's right, then you definitely have a conflict. But when we can sit as an adult, as adults, and try to talk and work our way through our conflict, it is so much better. It may not be resolved right away, but if you continue with it, if you constantly talk about it and try to find a solution, that conflict could be resolved. One of the main conflict that we have in relationships, especially with husband and wives, it's financial. Financial, the finances is always a problem, especially if you are not working together, you're not given, or maybe state what is the expectation in that relationship whenever you would have gotten started. You're married to a person, you didn't discuss finances, period. And sometimes, as women, we tend to believe that it's automatic that the man knows that he should take care of this bill and take care of the next bill. But a conversation must always be held as to how finances will take place in marriages. Because he may decide, I will pay this bill and I will allow my wife to pay another bill. Whereas some men, they will take all of the responsibility for the house. They pay every bill. But if he is not working at a job that's sufficient to cover all of those expenses, then it's only wise for both parties to work together. And when you work together with your finances, it's so much better because you give some and he gives some. And it also helps to solidify your marriage. When you can get together and work to accomplish whatever you are hoping to have in a relationship, then it can work. But do not go into a relationship believing that my husband will take care of everything. We want that to happen, but not in every instance can it happen. So when you are in a relationship and that is not possible, then you sit and you have a conversation. But do not leave it and take it for granted that he knows that the bill is his. No, work together. That will help in that area, finances. Then the other conflict that we often have in relationship is one party, the wife, perhaps holding herself away from her husband or keeping sex away from her husband. That can be a conflict. You know, it was often said that the headache was used to prevent having to go together to bed together. But the headache doesn't work no more. Ladies, that has been warned out. If you know you're tired, simply say you're tired. But try, even the Bible tells us that we should not withhold ourselves from our husbands. And if you're doing that, that's another big conflict. That conflict can also cause extramarital affair. And I'm not saying that it's warranted, but some men will use that excuse and go out and look for someone else. So rather than withhold yourself, women, wives, let's work things out. Um, there are some, and some folks may say, well, okay, we have this night, we have that night, and we have that night. And I'm not sure I believe in that. But anyhow, if it works for someone else, if it works for you, that's fine. But be prepared to sit and talk in order to resolve whatever conflict arises from withholding yourself from your spouse. So when any conflict arises in a relationship, sometimes the first thing a person may do is get angry, carry on, and cause a big ruckus in the home. But as adults, if we sit and we talk about it, you will find that it was not as bad as you thought, provided each individual is willing to sit and talk, listen to each other, allow your spouse to speak, and then you talk about it. There are said to be some tips for for couples in order to help to resolve their conflicts. And one of them is don't blame your partner. We can blame, believe it or not. I have a 2-year-old grandson, and anytime something is not right or maybe something is broken, and you ask him, did you break this? Oh no, he would always call another name. He didn't break it. He never did anything wrong. So we cannot blame our partner. That's the first thing, because the blame game will cause that conflict to escalate. And you don't want to be in a relationship and it's always, yes, you did this, you did that, and because you did that, I'm going to do this. Mm-mm. We have to take responsibility. And I speak to my sisters out there. We must take responsibility for action. And no one likes to be blamed on anything. But if we take responsibility for where we are at fault, then it might help the other person to take their responsibility. But if you are just seeing the side that he did wrong and you're not seeing your side, there will never be a resolution, because it's always two that tangles. I never see one person tangle by themselves. It's always two people that tangles. So if there is a conflict, you may have helped to contribute to it. It might be very simple, it may be small, but that very small problem can cause a big fire to blaze. So don't blame your partner. Even though you may see, and I always say to people, if you must confront something, never go with the attitude of you did this. Mm-mm. The minute you start with the you put up all kind of guards, and he or she is waiting to hear what's coming after the you, because right away they know you're coming with a blame. You're coming to accuse. And that's all they're thinking about. So when you say you, be prepared for what's coming after. But instead, you can say, well, I don't like this when this happens. But don't start with you. You made me angry. You did this. You did the next. That's fuel right there for a big argument. So the first thing we don't want to do is to begin to blame. Do not blame. Sit down and see where the problem started, and right where it started, you deal specifically with that problem. Um, you ever see when there's an argument that comes up in a relationship? You started out with one thing, and after that one situation, you find everything comes into that argument. Everything comes into the argument. They will bring in what happened last year. They would bring into the relationship what happened yesterday. They would bring into the relationship everything, and it creates a bigger problem. So whenever there's a conflict, start right or deal with what is happening at that moment. Do not drag anything else into that relationship. And we are so happy that we have Ambassador Devon Rowe with us, and he is going to give us some more highlight in respect to conflict in our relationship. You're muted.
Good afternoon, Dr. Reed, and
Good afternoon.
thanks for having me once again on the Marriage Hour. It is a privilege to be here, and I think it's always a special responsibility when we're given the privilege to speak into the lives of persons' relationships, and in particular their marriage. One of the things that will either strengthen or weaken anyone's marriage is how they choose to deal with conflict in the relationship. And the big, well, it shouldn't be a surprise. The big kicker is it is impossible to avoid conflict in a relationship. It is a part of life. Um, I was talking earlier in another meeting that because of the fact that every human being has been given a mind, has been given a will, and that enables us to have preferences. And so long as you have preferences, there will be clash of, of personalities. There will be clash in desires. And that's not a bad thing. There's an age-old saying that trials and troubles and tribulations, they come to make you stronger. Now, how you respond to them determines whether you are strengthened or weakened. So, the great late Dr. Miles Monroe used to say, marriage is two histories coming together. Two histories coming together. So, for example, if you get married at age 25, and your spouse is also 25, that's 50 years coming together. And that takes time for the meshing and the harmonization to happen. And what makes the harmonization happen is overcoming differences of opinions and clashes in the relationship journey. So, and this is what we're talking about today: effective strategies in terms of how to deal with conflict, effective strategies for dealing with conflict in marriage. One of the first things I would add to the conversation, Dr. Marie, is it is important to do more listening and speaking when there are differences of opinions expressed. Because a lot of times when you don't listen more than you speak, you tend to speak from an emotional place rather than from a place of reason and logic. I don't think it's by chance that we have two ears and one mouth. we, I think we're supposed to listen double the time that we speak, so that when we speak, we can be very effective with the words that we say. So, listening so that we can speak intelligently and from a position of strength, as opposed to just reacting emotionally. Now, we're all humans in flesh, which means that in difficult situations, we're going to try to get out of the discomfort as quickly as we can, and go into this what you can call a mindset of self-preservation, because I want to make sure that my point is heard and that you don't take advantage of me. One of the things I like to say when I have the opportunity to counsel people going into marriage is I say that marriage is supposed to create a safe space.
Mhm.
Wherever you hear me from in the world, I you can find something to write that down, or put it in your notes in your phone. Marriage is intended to create a safe space. Now, what does that mean? Does a safe space mean that everything would always be okay and we will always be smiling and lovey-dovey with each other? No, not at all. A safe space means that in spite of what happens, there will be no judgment or condemnation in this space. Um, um, and though it is a safe space, it is important. In order for a safe space to work, it is important that both parties realize that no one is 100% strong 100% of the time. I want to say that again because it's very important. It's important to realize and to embrace the fact that no one is 100% of the time, which means for a successful relationship, for a successful marriage, I must make allowances for my spouse to make mistakes.
Yes.
I must make allowances for my spouse not to have their best, happiest day every day. Every day won't be a good hair day. Every day you won't wake up looking like Cinderella. Every day I may not sound the nicest because of what I went through the day before, but that's okay. It's a safe space. If I'm married to you, um, you're supposed to have, you should have the patience to allow me to go through a difficult spot, and while you allow me to go through that difficult spot, you should be encouraging me. You should be checking in on me. You should be letting me know it's okay. We all go through difficult times, and I'm here for you. See, that kind of language in marriage lets the person know that you really have my back. And there should be no one in this world that has your back as strongly as your spouse does. And that means I make allowances for you to make mistakes, and I'm there because I want to make sure that in spite of our challenge right now, that this space remains safe, because you're not going to be in that position forever. At some point, something is going to click. Something is going to help you to understand that okay, this feeling is temporary, or this challenge is temporary, and then we get back together quickly. And I stress the word quickly, so that we can get along with us being united in oneness, and having great old happy times like we're supposed to have. So that's I want to throw it into the mix. I think it's very important that we understand that no relationship goes without conflict. My late father used to say, um, so long as two people are in the room, there's going to be a difference of opinion. And
Always.
then he would also crack the joke that even in the room by himself, there's going to be a difference of opinion. So yourself sometimes. No, I, are you there?
Yeah, and we
Can you
here.
hear me? Yeah.
We
So that's my initial way in. Just talking about the realities of being prepared to deal with conflict, and to have that knowing in your heart that challenges will come, but be patient through the challenge that comes. Um, some of the another strategy that helps with dealing with conflict in marriage is not only listening more than you speak, but also knowing how to return a soft answer to your spouse if they are in a heated disposition. Um, um, Answering somebody as harshly as they speak if they're angry is like spraying Baygon
Mm.
on an inflamed fire already. That it doesn't make sense. All you're gonna cause is a further explosion. Uh, there's a text that says, "Soft a soft answer turns away wrath." If you're not upset and the other person is upset, don't join them in the upsetness. Seek to diffuse that. I was talking about that just recently. It's amazing how many people don't possess the skill or don't care to possess the skill of de-escalating heated
Yeah.
situations. I mean,
Yeah.
you can find a million people in a heartbeat who can come into a difficult situation and make it worse,
Worse.
or make it more inflamed, or help to make you more angry and more upset than you already are.
Hmm.
When you find a person who has the ability to de-escalate, embrace that person and keep them in your life, because we need more people like that. Um,
Exactly.
and the mindset of that kind of person is this: I see you. I see that you're upset. I see that you may even want me to join you in this, but I refuse to do it. And
Don't.
so, and so, I'm not going to answer you at the same decibel or in the same tone that you're speaking to me to. And this is what a lot of married people do. Their spouse, they come home, and their spouse is in a particular. Let's say the husband comes home, and the wife is home, and she got home early, and she has the children, and she stood and the children, and he comes home from work expecting smiles and a big hug and a kiss on the cheek, but she is frustrated because these children are not listening. She's trying to get a meal ready. She's trying to organize them with homework, and so her temperament isn't the best when he walks through the door. And he's now saying, "Wow, I just came home from work, and this lady is disrespecting me." Because that's what us men go too quickly. If you're not responding to us with a smile, we think automatically disrespect. And if that husband is not a wise husband, he's probably going to come back at his wife with the same kind of frustration and anger, saying, "How dare you greet me like this? I've been working hard all day," and he's not taking it into account. She's been working hard all day too, but she's also been wrestling now with these children and trying to make the home ready for his arrival. So in that moment, a wise husband, the wise posture would be, you know what? Take a deep breath, look at the situation, discern what's happening, and respond kindly. Like, you know what? Notwithstanding the way you responded, I see that things are a little rough here. Let me see how I can help. And he can even give a compliment. Say, "Honey, in the midst of all this craziness, you look so beautiful." That is how you diffuse a potential explosion. That's how you de-escalate it.
Yes.
And again, it's a skill, yes, but more I think more so than a skill, Dr. Marie, it's a choice.
It's a choice.
You
Yes.
have to make the decision that I am not going to add to this frustrated moment. And
Exactly.
and you don't have to be a deep spooky person to discern where when you walk into a room, hold on, this room is already tense, something is going on here. That's something about us humans. I think God built us innately with this spirit of discernment where we can walk into rooms. We didn't have an argument, no. We didn't see the frustration with our eyes, but we can sense that something has happened in this room because I don't feel peace, I don't feel liberty, I don't smell roses, so to
Hmm.
speak. Um, and there is where my wisdom needs to kick in terms of choosing to not add to the frustration, but rather diffuse it or de-escalate it with a soft answer, and sometimes even the strategy of not even speaking to what you see, changing the subject to something that's nicer, that would lend something that's nicer, and that would change the moment into a better one.
You know, Ambassador,
Yes.
I was listening to this lady and she was sharing a story. Her husband came home very late at least it was past his time to be home.
Right.
And she was already prepared with meal and everything. He didn't come right away.
Hmm.
And she was ready, waiting to tell him off. And then the Holy Spirit just told her to greet him when he gets in. And sure enough, as he got in the door, he had a very rough day. But because
Yes.
she was already forewarned, she diffused that what could have been a very, you know, big upset at that time. Had she approached him about his coming in late.
Yes.
So, and that soft answer makes a whole lot of difference,
Makes a whole lot of difference.
you know.
Makes a whole lot of difference. I think. I think another factor in helping us to have effective strategies with dealing with conflict in relationships is when you come into a relationship with an individual. Like I said already, it's two histories coming together. I think it's so important that we make a conscious effort to continuously study our spouses.
Right.
Study our spouses. It's amazing. Like if before we get married, before we get connected or hitched, you see the woman who just knocks you off your feet, or the woman sees the man that wow, he's incredible. You don't know nothing about him. You just looked at
Absolutely.
them, you just saw a smile, and you're intrigued, and you want to do whatever you have to do to go and study and to pursue this person and to get more knowledge about the person. You succeed. You get your date. You
Yes.
go on several dates, and now you're in love, and you want to get married now, right away.
Hmm.
And then after the marriage, a few weeks, months, years in, all of it, all that passion to study and learn more about this person just disappears. Where does it go?
Where did it go?
Some people like to say life happens. Well,
Happen.
if you do nothing, life will continue to happen to you until it's time for you to leave this earth. So you got to be intentional about studying and preparing yourself to grow with your spouse.
Yes, exactly.
Uh, After a certain period of time married, you should kind of know your spouse's strengths.
Hmm.
You should know their weaknesses. You should know the words to say to uplift your spouse. If you're studying them, you should know when they're flustered and frustrated because life is coming at them in so many different directions.
That's right.
Um, and and I think many people they stop doing that, and that makes their relationship grow cold, and it makes it difficult because when you are having a difficult time and your spouse discerns it and does their best to make you feel better, and sometimes to make you feel better simply as simple as acknowledging that I see that you're going through a lot.
Hmm.
You're like, wow, he took the time to realize that. She took the time to notice that. That makes a person feel so much better.
Yeah.
I
Oh, yeah.
don't I don't think we understand. Many of us in relationship don't understand how powerful words are.
Very, very.
Words can shift the very trajectory of your day, the very
Hmm.
trajectory of your emotional disposition. If someone just says, like for example, when there are studies that have been done that say when somebody says something negative to you, it releases toxins, causes your brain to release toxins, and we
Yes.
know that toxins are like poison that goes through our system. And if we stay in a negative disposition, toxins can make you sick,
Hmm.
deadly sick too. However, the same study reveals that when words like "I love you," "I care for you," "I forgive you," when these words are not only spoken but also heard, they cause the body to release what they call dopamine, or the feel good hormone to your
Hmm.
body that invigorates your body,
Hmm.
that makes you smile, that makes your organs and everything inside of you feel good. And so words go a long way. How much more when they are spoken for somebody who you're in a covenant relationship with? And so to those who are listening to us today, I want to encourage the importance of being very intentional about speaking positive words to your spouse, and of discerning, being intentional of learning and studying your spouse so that you can kind of tell what frame of mind they're in. And can I add this too? It needs to be mutual because it could become very burdensome to one of the spouses if only me is making this effort.
That's right.
I don't know if you want to weigh in there, Dr. Marie. I think it's so important that we kind of share the burden
Yeah.
of studying each other to learn our different modes and moods in life.
Oh, yeah. And I think that is where we can look at each other and appreciate each other. Because if we respect each other and respect how our partner feels or how we make them feel, that can help to resolve some of the conflict. But you said something earlier when you spoke about um, something you said about them, you know, I, I, I lost it in my train of thoughts. But in other words, it was if your spouse may say something, right? You're trying to bring conflict. Resolve conflict. Sometimes I believe in relationship there are triggers. There are
Yes,
triggers.
yes,
And as a result of the triggers, even though the intent is to come across well and to bring a good thing, it can cause a conflict to arise in that moment. So, but if we study, that is where I wanted to go. If we study and know our partner well
mhm,
enough, right? Because after all the heat from the infatuation, the excitement of marriage and meeting someone, when that dies, what do you have to go on? And
yeah,
that's where the challenge comes in because it's no longer butterflies. This is the reality. And he's coming home from work. Are you willing to greet him? Or do you just let it all hang out? Or you forget that you're supposed to be doing whatever as a wife in the home? Because you've become familiar. And it is when we hit the familiarity,
yeah,
that's when we run into problems. So for relationships, we have to keep it burning, keep the fire, keep the
yep,
fire burning, you know, because if we get too familiar, we're going to create a problem. But never try to get that familiar, even though you're trying to learn your partner, what makes him tick, what makes her tick, what is it she loves, how can I help to bring up more. I see the way she acted when I said that nice thing about her whole demeanor changed. So how can I now build on that to keep that fire going?
hmm
And that's where we need to get,
hmm
rather than always a conflict. He look at you too hard. Why are you looking at me? We've grown apart. Whenever we reach that point that we can compliment each other, say something nice about each other, you are growing apart. But we want to grow together because you know what? Um, I always look at it. What about when you get much older?
yes,
When you become old, too old to even date again, and you're kicking up with this relationship, but you're not getting any younger
right.
to pull another strong relationship. It's better to continue with the one that you have, build that one, make it stronger. And I find that if persons do that, they will save themselves a lot of stress.
It's very
You,
good.
you know what, Ambassador, one of the things I noticed, you find a lot of, not a lot, but you find some men, they didn't make their relationship work and now they are alone, right?
hmm
And and it's a lot of, and sometimes it's over simple issues, something that could have been fixed right then.
Right.
Selfishness caused them to want to keep going, and now you're in a place where it seems as though no one wants to spend that time with you again, or you feel you're too old to begin to date again. So it's better to make it work, make it work,
But
and
what I hear you saying is marriage is not for cowards.
It is not.
Not for cowards. It's not for chickens. You have to think with the long haul viewpoint. I am in this for the long haul.
For the
And
long
can I
haul.
say there are too many marriages that don't have an overarching vision.
None.
Um, Me thinking you're sexy and you thinking me strong is not enough to sustain
No.
us for the 30, 40-year journey or more. We need to establish like an overarching vision and purpose for our marriage that's bigger
Hmm.
than just the infatuation romantic stage. The infatuation romantic part of the marriage is the bonus for me. I think it's the bonus.
It
It,
is
it,
the
it, it,
bonus.
helps,
Yes,
it helps to keep you driven. It
that's
helps
right.
to motivate you, even especially in those low moments. Um,
Exactly.
but that vision helps you to get over conflicts quickly because you're like, hold on, man, we can't stay here in this feud and we have bigger things to do. We have children to raise. We have a business to establish. We have a legacy, to, especially like if your marriage is like over 30 years, we have a legacy to kind of make sure that we are leaving in place. And so that should keep you driven and not drowning in conflict. But one of the things that I think is important to highlight, well, maybe we should do it, remind people what they're listening to. They're listening to the Love Beat radio here with the Marriage Hour, here with Dr. Marie and myself, Ambassador Devin Rule. We're coming to you live, and this is every Sunday now at 3 p.m. And I think this show is dedicated to helping to strengthen the bond of marriage, hopefully helping also to keep your love life spicy as we encourage you to stick together and work through whatever difficulties are there. Because if you approach your challenges correctly, it will cause your marriage to grow even stronger, having
Yes.
come through the difficulties. Just thought to throw that in there.
Yes.
Um, well, what we're talking about today's our topic today is effective strategies for resolving conflict in marriage. And the point I want to go to now is that oftentimes in marriage, people have a mountain heap of unresolved conflict that makes it difficult to deal with the simplest of challenges. What I mean? I mean, you and your spouse, because of the toxicity in the marriage, whereby anything you bring up explodes into unnecessary fights. And so one of you or both of you have decided, you know what? It doesn't make sense to even try. So anytime a disagreement comes up, you go in silent mode and you just walk away. And what's happening is a mountain pile heap of unresolved conflicts is building in your marriage. And so no argument is really about the argument in front of you.
No.
So every time we fuss, we're really fussing about 10 years of unresolved conflict that we just never dealt with.
Never
And
tell.
so it makes the simplest of arguments seem like World War III. I highlight to a lot of couples when they come to me and they're arguing about his tendency with the dishes or he leaves the toilet seat up and they're fighting like unto the death. I mean, like, hold on. I said, y'all are not fighting about this issue. Y'all got some other stuff there that y'all have not dealt with because this issue is too small for the level of intensity that y'all are putting into this.
Hmm.
I hope this is helping somebody right now because you're thinking like, man, it's over. This is crazy. This
Hmm.
we're fighting all the time. No, you're dealing with a bunch of unresolved conflict that
Conflict.
you're refusing to put on the table. And some couples listening to us now may need to simply accept the fact that you need a third party intervention.
Hmm.
Getting help from outside of your marriage does not mean your marriage has failed. Not at all. There's an old saying that says that in the multitude of counsel, there's safety. In the multitude of counsel, there's safety. So one of the things when I counsel couples who are about to get married, I say to them that y'all need to agree on somebody that you will go to in the day of conflict.
That's right.
Somebody who you both submit to, whose counsel you value, so that if you ever come to a stalemate in your marriage, one of you can say to the other, you know what? Let's go to Mr. So and so or Doctor So and so or Pastor so and so and ask them their take on this situation,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to building a mountain mile high heap of unresolved conflicts that's making it difficult for you all to decide who's even going to wash the dishes. That's crazy. Your thoughts on that, Dr. Marie?
It's amazing. And that's one of the things I was talking about because anytime you see an argument for a simple thing, there must be some more behind. And it would be so nice if persons, when there's a conflict, anything comes up, do not wait until to resolve it. Resolve it right then. If it's something that you dislike, and it depends on how you deal with it, because you could deal with it and resolve it, and that's over. But usually we do not approach ambassador a problem until we are really upset because we didn't have the guts. We didn't have the guts to deal with it then. So we wait until we are angry and then we try to resolve it.
Mhm.
And that will not be resolved like that. It has to be, we sit down together, we talk it through, see where, how we can do better, or each person can take responsibility for their part of it. But if we wait until it's piled up, then you burned the egg yesterday, you blackened the toast today, and everything is going to come up in that one conversation that you're really trying to resolve.
Mhm.
So that is one of the things I find in relationships. It's that we allow things to linger rather than deal with it. And if we have to deal with it, we wait until we're angry to deal with it.
Yeah, wise counsel. That's wise counsel there.
You
That's
understand? Hmm.
create a culture of dealing with issues quickly. Create a
Quickly.
culture of dealing with issues quickly. Because if you wait too late until everybody, all the emotions are now very high, chances are what you're going to get is emotional spillage as opposed to sound reasoning.
That's right.
And like I like to say, you don't want to get to that point because you're tempted to make a permanent decision over a temporary discomfort,
That's right.
which you should never ever do.
Hmm.
And I think spouses need to develop the art sometimes too. If a situation, if you get blindsided and the thing escalates very quickly into a heated row, sometimes you got to know with de-escalation techniques how to get out of that heated situation and ask, can we pause here and get back to this at a later date?
Hmm.
And like I said to my clients who I counsel, but be true to your word now. If you ask for a pause or a ceasefire, make
Hmm.
sure you own up to the promise of getting back to it when you say you will get back to it.
That's right.
And here's where you can employ great strategy too, because it's so crazy. Couples don't take advantage of the fact that you can use to your advantage your spouse's love language when it
Hmm.
comes to dealing with an argument.
Yeah.
If you and it's Dr. Gary Chapman, um, known the world over for breaking down love languages into five groups. He says there are words of affirmation, there's
Hmm.
acts of service, there's the receiving of gifts, there's quality time, and physical touch. Words of affirmation, acts of service, gifts, receiving of gifts, quality time, and physical touch. In
Hmm.
between your break, with the break that you asked for, because the argument is getting too heated and it was going nowhere, maybe you want to shower your spouse with some of those whatever love language they have, whether it's a gift, whether it's quality touch, physical touch, whether it is an act of service, so that you get them in a different headspace.
That's right.
Get them in a different headspace
Hmm.
because it is easier to work out a situation where there are calmer heads sitting to
Hmm.
the table to resolve that conflict. Um, and I think we'll be remiss if we don't talk about here the importance of forgiveness
Hmm.
when it comes to resolving conflict. There are there are some circumstances and battles that you go into in life, and especially in marriage, where there may not be any sensible understanding as to why a certain thing happened that upset you. Sometimes as human beings we do dumb things. We make grievous mistakes. And the only antidote or saving grace for the relationship may actually be just totally forgiveness, where you display and give kindness and you give grace on credit because you value the relationship, you value that thing that y'all said y'all came together for to accomplish more than even a mistake that may have hurt you. But you forgive and seek to grow your relationship um, at a different level after the forgiveness. Now, and that can encompass all kinds of levels of hurt and even betrayal, because we're talking to people who listen all around the world who are having all sorts of challenges in their relationships, whether it's overcoming unfaithfulness, whether it's dealing with financial mishandling in the past, whether it's the very popular one of one of the spouses allowing too much of their family, their immediate family from the past, to influence their marriage and the decisions made in the marriage. These are some heavyweight stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Or one spouse saying they were paying the bills, but they really weren't paying the bills, and stuff starts
Mm-hmm.
to cut off.
Yes.
Um, it, Sometimes there isn't an explanation that makes sense. And but here's what I want to say to the violating party, because I've had to deal with so many situations like this, whereby the person you have violated the trust of your spouse, you've broken your spouse's heart. However, you say sorry, but your immediate position after you say sorry is say, let's move on, let's just get over it. No, 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 you can't do that.
Takes time.
You are out of order.
Very much so.
You are out of, I can't find no nicer way to say it. You are out of order. If you violated something significant in your marriage relationship, you broke trust, you
Don't
were
take it lightly.
unfaithful, you have to take your time with
Mm-hmm.
the restoration and the healing process that's necessary to the person who you offended. You gotta
That's
give them time. And the matter, not only give them time, your mission from that point on should be to win back their trust.
that's right.
And for those of you who are listening to us who are from the faith disposition in life, spiritual disposition in life, you know that we forgiveness is not optional. We have to forgive. However, trust must be earned,
You have to earn it.
even in marriage. If you mishandle the family's money for months and you cannot even give an account, we're not just gonna put all the money back in your hand again to do it all over again. No, we're gonna forgive you, but let's take some time before we go back in and put all the money back in your hand because you have to earn trust. Talk about the importance of that, Dr. Marie, the earning re-earning trust that you threw away by your misaction.
Right. I think persons may feel that, oh, you're supposed to trust me. I'm your wife. But like you said, if you have broken that trust, you yourself must be patient and do all that you possibly can to rebuild that trust again. And one of the things that we should add in there is patience, because he or she may not give in right away. They may see things that trigger them again. It'll take a It's so easy to gain trust, I might say, but once it's broken, or it's easy to broke trust, but it's hard to regain again.
Right?
You cannot expect to fall right back in the same position. Just for example, if someone violates you, you could restore your relationship back.
Yeah.
That perspective, you don't have to positionally restore to that point.
Mm-hmm.
They may not even trust you for a very, very, very long time,
Yeah.
fully the way they trusted you before. But
Yeah.
you have to then stay in place, continue to do right, and you cannot blame. Remember, I talk about the blame game. You cannot blame them for the stand that they at, because it's not easy to regain trust when somebody would have hurt you or broken that trust. It's not easy.
Right.
But Ambassador, I also wonder about folks when they go into marriage. Did they get the counseling? Counseling, Or even, do you understand what you're getting yourself into? Because people take it very light that, if I do wrong, that it's okay, you know. But we have to be aware as to what we're getting ourselves into, and are we willing to make this thing work, you know. So that is what if we're not willing to work to fix the situation, um, we can break that relationship apart. But if we are willing to make it work, we realize that we've done wrong, we've violated our spouse's trust, then we should then take time, do all we can, and don't expect to win it back overnight. It may not come that easily. And I believe that's why we have a lot of marriage failures. When we get to that point, one violated, and it could be the woman, it could be the man. Once you violate that trust, don't feel bad if you are the one who violated the trust. Don't feel bad that they do not trust you right away, but instead begin to work at making yourself better. Think about where you want, and you got. I believe one of the things you would also want to do is continue to just let your spouse know, give her or him your your pledge yourself to them. I'm doing this, and I'm hoping that we can get better. We just have to do it.
Yes,
Yeah.
agreed totally.
So those are
Uh,
the things that we have to do in order to make our relationships spiced.
I heard a speaker one time talk about the the growth curve in marriage. I thought it was so significant. How he was married for almost 40 years, and he says it's like in each of those 4 decades, it was like he was married to somebody else. But he said it in a positive light though, because his thing was he was saying marriage is worth fighting for, because what we don't realize is that it's a marathon and not a sprint. The person who you're with in your 20s, as you're trying to find your way vocationally, as you're trying to start your family, as you're getting introduced to living with somebody else and paying all these bills. He says that's not the same person you're with 20 years later when the children are grown, you've paid off the mortgage, you have a successful business. He says you'll be amazed of how you rob yourself of seeing the maturity of your spouse because you gave up in a temporary season of difficulty. So he says,
Oh,
learn to nurture one another as you grow with each other, because there is a reward on the other side of going through that challenge.
mm,
You're going to have a more mature husband 20 years from now, a
I
more
like
mature wife 20 years from now, because you've gone through challenges, you've gone through conflicts together, and you have overcome them.
yes.
I one of the things I've started saying recently in a lot of the marriage counsel that I do before they get married, I say, um, never become so content with your spouse that you stop owning your mistakes quickly and apologizing even quicker.
Mm,
Never become, you hit on it earlier when you talk about this familiarity. Never
mhm,
become so used or familiar with your spouse that you stop owning your mistakes
mhm,
and apologizing quickly. Couples rob themselves long periods of time
yes,
because the violating person or violating spouse would not own their mistake.
yes.
Remember how I started off? I started off by
Mhm,
saying a marriage is meant to create a safe space,
I see.
which means if you make a mistake, don't hide it.
Mhm,
Come to your partner who you're supposed to trust and love and say, sorry, I made this mistake. I really didn't intend to do it. Please forgive me,
mhm,
because I don't want to hide this from you. I think when couples do that, they add tremendous maturity to the growth of their relationship. Your
yes,
thoughts?
yes, yes. I totally agree with that, and that is where we want to be if are going to enjoy the beauty of that relationship. Be able to, you know, value. And that's the word I want to intentionally use. Value your spouse. And if you value your spouse, the things that they can come and share with you, um, you will help them. You will help your spouse because you value that person. But when you do not value your spouse, then you will always have a problem because the first time she do anything, you're not going to assume or believe that his or her intention was good and there is nothing to create a problem over. But when you cannot value them, then you will have problems. So I totally agree with what you just said, you know.
Hmm. Hmm. Thank you. So I think we have dropped a whole lot of tips in terms of how to strategize and dealing with the ever um, the inevitable presence of conflict in your growth curve in marriage. I want to say it that way because I want to let the listeners know that it helps in your growth and in maturity as a couple when you hang in there through the challenges and you determine that we're going to work through this and our marriage is going to become stronger. So, listening audience, you're listening to Love Beat Radio here with the Relationship and Marriage Hour. Dr. Marie McDonald, myself, Ambassador Devin Rowe. We are bringing what we feel are principles that have helped us in our relationship. Both of us are married with children and pressing ahead, seeking to grow more and more in love with our spouses. And at the same time, whatever help we can give in terms of sharing our experiences, we are here doing it today. I hope you are enjoying this. And please let people know about this marriage hour. And I hope there's somewhere, Dr. Maria, they can let the station know that we're helping them and benefiting them in this journey as we share our experiences with them.
Yes, 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 yes. As we prepare Ambassador Rowe, I just wish to speak to our audience in final words. If there is a conflict, I want to encourage our persons, maybe sit down over a ice cream, an ice cream, or take a walk on the beach, holding hands, regardless of how upset you may be.
Yes.
Take a walk
Yeah.
and try to talk through it.
Right.
Think about your spouse as your friend, your best friend,
Very
that
nice.
you're walking down the beach or sucking on an ice cream, licking an ice cream.
Hmm.
Think about your spouse as your friend. And I wish you can come back and tell us on our next program that you've tried it and let us know if it worked.
Right.
Now, and if one get angry, you stay calm and you use your love language
Yes.
and come back and tell us that it worked because it will work, but it takes effort on our part.
Yeah.
And sometimes you may be really angry, but you have to hold that anger because you are trying to win this part of the game with your spouse. And you're not allowing it to beat you down.
Life, life in today's world is complex. I want to encourage couples to create a rhythm in spite of all of the obligations, the bills, the house, the children, the family. Like Dr. Maria is saying, I want to reinforce that. Create by virtue of a habit the time to spend casual time with your spouse. Life is not just about work, 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 work. You got to balance it and make time for fun, make time for leisure, make time for enjoying each other's company, make time to sow positive words into your spouse. Like we said earlier in this show, it causes a chain reaction of wonderful feelings within just the words. Imagine how much more that contributes to your intimacy when you make it a habit, spending that quality time with your spouse away from all of the must do's of life. Create casual time to speak into each other's lives and to enjoy each other's company.
Yes.